Hi everyone, welcome to today's growing tutorial. I'm going to be showing you today how to plant up a window box, so one of these, and this one is probably about 20-25 centimeters deep. It's made of plastic. It's already got some holes in the bottom, but sometimes when you get these they just mark out the holes and they haven't necessarily drilled them. So one really important thing is to make your holes, especially if you're using something that isn't already a planting box. And I'm going to be focusing on planting out Mediterranean herbs, and I've got here some rosemary, thyme, sage and oregano, and those plants all grow in the same conditions. They all like sun, they all like very free draining soil, they don't like sitting in really heavy wet soil or compost. And by planting in one of these, we can create the exact conditions that they enjoy. And I'm going to put 4 in this box, which is going to mean they're going to be quite close together. And if I was planting these where I had more space, I'd put each one of these in its own kind of round pot. But I'm showing you this because I appreciate that a lot of you might not have very much space. You might only have one of these at home. And these will be fine for their first growing year, and if you find that they grow quite big, then you might need to separate them out in the future. But also if you're harvesting them, then that's going to limit their growth as well. So what I've mixed up in my planter box already is a mixture of about 1 part compost. You can use a multi-purpose compost. It's good to get a peat-free one. I've used a couple of different ones that I have, and I've mixed that with 1 part topsoil, which if you've got a garden you can use your own, if not you can buy that, and then I've also put in probably around half a part, a few really big handfuls of grit, or kind of potting grit, horticultural grit, which is this stuff. And that's just going to enhance the drainage. Another thing that you can add in, again to enhance drainage, is any kind of broken bits of things that you might have. So little bits of rubble, any kind of broken pots or plates and things. And I've just put a few of those kind of throughout the mix. I haven't put them at the bottom, which is what you often see gardeners do. You only really need to put them at the bottom of your pots if you've got a really big hole, which you usually might get in a big terracotta pot. Otherwise, I just mix them through to encourage that drainage. And what I've actually done on the edge here, which is where I'm going to plant the thyme, is I've actually put a bit more of the horticultural grit and also a few more of these stones, because thyme particularly really enjoys growing essentially out of rubble and rock, and doesn't need barely any soil to be happy. So I filled this up. I'm just going to add in a little bit more. So I actually mixed all my soil and things in here, and then just have put it into my container. So you can do that, or you can mix it directly in your container. You don't want to go right up to the top of your planter, because you want to have a little bit of space so that when you water, it doesn't all kind of dribble out everywhere. And I've gently pressed this down. You can also kind of tap it on your table. I usually tend to use my fingers just to push it down a little bit, so just reduce a lot of the air holes, air pockets in the soil, but not kind of really pushing it down. And then next thing you're going to do is just to pop these in. So this is the oregano, and make sure you've watered your plants before you do this, and then it's just a case of giving them a little bit of a squeeze to get them out, and then kind of putting your hand over the top so you turn them over. You can see this one is actually kind of needs to come out of its pot. It's got some roots growing here, so I'm actually just going to have to give this a bit of a tug to get it out like that. And then if you have got roots looking like this, what you can do is just tease them, because otherwise if you plant that straight away it might not realise that it's gone into a bigger home. But just by pulling them out gently just encourages them to grow on happily. So then I'm just going to make a little hole here, and I'm going to plant it up to the height that it was in the container. And I can just take off some of these little leaves here to make a hole. You might actually have to take some of your potting mix out if you put too much. Put that in and then just pushing the soil back around it. And what you can do is, if you haven't put enough in, you can just top up that at the end. So I'm just planting in kind of in the middle, and that one's going to go in the end. So all of these are really lovely culinary herbs. This rosemary actually is ginger rosemary, which I've never grown before, so I'm quite excited about that. So this one's not so bad. So that one I'll just gently tug a tiny bit, just a little bit. So as I was saying, you can use all of these in cooking. You can also use them to make lovely teas. And this is, I'm going to pop this. I actually don't have very much stuff on my windows on the outside, but I might pop them there just to do a fair test. But the idea is this can sit on your window ledge. Equally, it can sit on your patio if you have a patio. So that's the rosemary. Then I've got this sage. So this is just common sage, really good herb for sore throats. You can also infuse it in apple cider vinegar to make a really lovely tonic, or cook with it. I like frying it and having it with soup. Just going to pop that in, try to not make too much mess. Again, so you're just pushing the soil back around. And then finally thyme. So this is some thyme, you might have seen this in the spotlight. This is some thyme that I grew from seed last year. So it's already had a bit of a trim. Not too pot bound, just a little bit. So the plants do grow quite quickly in one season. And what I'm going to do actually is just scoop out a bit of this compost. Because now I've put the other things in, I've got a bit more space. There, and then just pop this final one in this bit where as I was saying, I've put a lot more grit and sharp bits in here just so it doesn't get too wet. Push that in, and then I'm just going to use this extra bit of compost that I had just to go back around all these plants and make sure that they're all covered up nicely like that. Push them around. You can give each of them a little, again, just a little press in. Another thing that you could do with this, if you wanted to, one, to make it look quite nice, and to reduce the amount of kind of composty splashback you get when you're watering this, is to cover all the surface with some of your grit. So I've got it here actually, so I might just do a bit. So you can kind of, or if you've got like some stones, you could do that. Or even if you just put a little bit, actually also looks quite nice. We just kind of cover that round. I think it looks quite nice like that. And there we go. So that's kind of your planter. The other benefit of using that mix of topsoil and compost also means that this is quite heavy. So you want to make sure it's very stable on your window ledge. If your window ledge is very exposed and you do get a lot of grit, you can maybe think about attaching a bracket or putting something in front of it so it's not going to easily tip over. But by having something kind of very heavy, you're going to avoid that. And the last thing I'm going to do is just water it. So I've got a watering can here which has got a fairly gentle stream. The other thing that you can do if you don't have one of these, or if you're not a gardener and have 7 or 8 different types of watering cans for different jobs, you can make your own with an old bottle of water, pop some holes in the top, and then just give it a little dribble like that. And you can do smaller holes for a less strong stream. So that is it really. I'm going to leave these now, put them in the sunniest place because they love the sun, and enjoy them growing.